And today on Wall Tactics, we're here with Brad Chester, one of the hosts of Death or Glory and the 40K Lore podcast. So, of course, check those out. And I would like to say he's one of my personal favorite war chiefs who's here to talk about his personal rise in the Greentide. So, he's going to have some good advice, tips, and tricks for you new war bosses from a true legend himself. Like they always say, be weary of an old man in a game where young men die early.
Love it. I am definitely the old guy. I love that.
So he's been around, and you guys, I'm telling you, I'll be reaching over tables, my hamstrings be giving out sometimes, and I look over at the older guys like, what the bro, I'm over here stretching out and stuff. What's up with you guys? And I'm pretty active. How you guys still moving around these tables?
Drink wine.
Yeah, you don't feel it. You just numb
just
out.
Drink the wine, baby. That's the way you go through the entire tournament.
That was a good way to say it. That was a good. Okay, first piece of advice: drink a little wine so you can numb through the pain of physical pain. There you go. So right away with one of my first questions is I want to know about Brad as someone who plays so many factions, been around for such a long time, where you've deeply experimented in multiple editions of all these factions. Why do you always love or hate the orcs?
The thing is that orcs are always fun, no matter what they are. I always have such a good time playing orcs. It's one of the reasons I brought them to LVO. When I was debating what I was going to bring, I was like, I can bring Necrons, I can bring CSM, and I can bring orcs. And it always went back to, no matter how I do, if I play orcs, I'm going to have a fun time the entire weekend. And I think that a lot of players need to look at that, though, because I'm not saying that I won't meta stuff. But when you look at something, you go, hey, I'm going to play up to 10 games, like an OVO, a GT, 6 games, stuff like that. We're still playing with our toys, man. I want to play something that's going to feel super fun, that's going to have epic stories. And orcs always give you those epic stories about things. When did you call the WAAAGH? Did you call it right? What did your big guys do? Your Mazrog, your Gazgul, did you get into some crazy crumpins? You give good stories with orcs, and I think other orc players appreciate that. So it's nice to talk about why you didn't just play an army because your data sheet said this. It's like, I want to put something down. Like we were talking before we went live. I want to play some snake bites, and I love the idea of an orc clan that literally says these other orcs and their newfangled technology, get off my lawn. As an old man, I really empathize with that. Damn kids. But the thing about playing with orcs is, to be honest, I wish we this is weird coming from somebody that plays really competitive. I liked having a little bit. I wish we brought back some of our more random stuff. When shock attack guns used to possibly shoot you out.
Oh my God.
You had some wacky stuff. I don't know, like orc, you got to believe, and then it just happens. That's how orcs work.
So you want some mayhem. But from what you're saying from this first question is very important for new players, because you're buying the new models, you're starting this new army, you're painting, you're getting into this. And as you're learning 40K as a whole, no matter what faction you are, you're going to be taking your losses, you're going to be taking your stripes. You might as well be having fun while you're doing it. And like Brad was saying, it's so rewarding to have those moments because you have to earn them as an orc player. You're jumping into 40K that's a shooting-based universe with, like Brad said, axes and sticks and stick bombs and rocks and your teeth, you know what I mean? So especially as snake bites, and that's, like I said, that's the rewarding part that even Brad at legendary status is saying it's the most rewarding when you can do it the old way.
It just is, though.
Right?
You'll have it. You'll also play. You'll appreciate your wins more, but also you'll practice more with stuff. If you're playing with an army that you don't love, that's why sometimes I play something and I come back to orcs. I'll play something, I come back to, because I always know I'm going to have a good time. And like, I don't care how good an army is. If you don't love that army, you're just not going to have the best time. Because in the end, I give this all the time. When you think about what you're angry about or a game went bad, you always have to ask this question. What would it sound like if I told somebody that didn't play 40K why I'm mad? Because you have to start off with, me and another adult were playing with our toys, and this is why I'm angry. And then you go, all right, I sound crazy. So just enjoy yourself. You know what I mean? Enjoy yourself, make a game fun, be the best, but have fun doing it.
So that falls into tips for greenskins. So when you're falling into these enjoy doing it moments, how are you enjoying it while really gaining your stripes? Because you are going to be taking games where you're being shot off the table. A lot of the time people are kind of dealing with that. So how do you mitigate getting shot off the table? One thing I would say is when you were talking about the love for your army, if you don't have that love for your army, you're not going to learn different data sheets. You're not going to follow the meta and actually pay attention to what's changing so that you can keep proficient with your lists and your data sheets and just keeping up to date on the rules, because as things change, you might go, well, I don't really like that unit that much. I'm not really that passionate about this. So what are tips while you're being kind of defeated or getting stuck in will help orcs?
One, know what your battlefield roles are. Know that what they do, because you have to have X amount of damage, you have to have X amount of scoring, and you have to have X amount of move blocking. And you have to know what units do what. It's very important to know that. And it's also very, very important to get your army, get a core. One of the biggest mistakes I see new players do, and a lot of experienced players, is you're trying to make yourself the best army, but what you do is you change too much. You can't change huge amounts of your armies all the time. Get your army to 1,400 points, maybe 1,500 points. Then you can start tinkering. But you can't tinker with the whole army every time, because then you don't know what is good. The other thing is there's nothing wrong with net listing, but you can't net list and not know why people bring stuff. Make that list your own. Also, don't let anybody tell you that this unit's bad, you should never take it. Play what you want to play, man. For one, the rule cool always applies. You spent a whole bunch of time modeling and painting a badass unit. Put that unit on the board, man. Don't let anybody tell you not to. But you'll actually learn from playing different units of why this unit's more efficient than this unit. Maybe you like playing mega knobs right now, and I like playing regular knobs, or I like squig hog riders, and just a lot of these units have similar battlefield roles. Figure out what the best unit for you is, because your playstyle might be slightly different than my playstyle. So the units might be a little bit more favorable for me on this. Make it the things that you love to play, but figure out the most efficient thing that you love. And that takes time, but that also takes the ability to learn from your mistakes. You're allowed to talk about dice for 24 hours. After that, you have to figure out why. And that's how you get better. As you go, there's almost always a point in the game where you made a mistake. If you can continually learn from those mistakes, you're gonna screw something up every game as a new player and an old player. But if you learn from that, make a different mistake every time. That's my goal, is literally make a new mistake every time I play. I'm gonna make a mistake, but don't do the same mistake all the time. Learn. Be a proper war chief.
And that's where you said, at least a cunning war chief, right? A proper freaking Goff might just go back in there and keep getting his teeth knocked out. But, I would say another piece of advice that goes along with what you're saying, try it new, try in a different way, is if you're running these different data sheets, like you said, that you actually like because it's off the meta wall, because you're learning how to make it work, because you've gotten maybe a little bit of dab of everything in their data sheets or in their codexes, now when it maybe becomes meta or people start to use it, you've now understand that rule and that data sheet so well. And that's how you learn 40K as a whole, because like you said, each data sheet, each unit role, you've now become proficient in, because you pick something based off its flavor. You've grown into loving it, and you've grown how to make it proficient due to that, not because someone told you to. So 100. When you're collecting, instead of going towards the meta, go towards whatever you want, because in your passion to learning that model, that data sheet, you will start learning the game as you can. So with you knowing what led you into this game and what's you giving advice to the orc new players, what led you to orcs for the future of the meta, post Dataslate, for your team's events? What's going on when you're cunning head?
This is a big deal on this, because one of the things that led I'm a lore guy first, even though I'm a paradox of this, because I'm a power gamer that's a huge lore fan. And orcs were that crazy army. Like I've been playing for 25 years now, and I've played orcs on and off since then. It's like Eldar and orcs I've been rotating through like for 25 years. And one of the big things about orcs is, well, they always have been a fun army, whether their power level is. But that's one thing that keeps bringing me back to orcs. And I love the fact that right now I love orcs in the meta. Why I like orcs in the meta is they're a mid-tier power army. They're not at the top, they're not at the bottom, but they have all of the tools to make it work. But you almost have high risk, high reward, because you have plays. You always have the possible answer. But the problem is at playing orcs, every time you pick the wrong answer, you get hit right in the head. You get smashed with that sledgehammer.
We're
Because
very direct.
it is though, because but if you make that, oh, I could have done this other move, shit, you could lose half your army because you basically lined up a little bit wrong. You didn't pre-measure enough, which is one thing I always say. You take shots that you shouldn't have taken. Everybody takes those occasionally. This guy does occasionally when I get lazy. Maybe I stayed out too late and didn't look at my guys. But one of the things about this in the meta is I think that orcs have answers. And the thing is that you don't need to kill everything. And that's one of the biggest things. I go back to new people on that. You don't need to kill everything. All I need to do is score more points than my opponent. And sometimes move blocking is better than killing stuff. I can't tell you the amount of games I've won just taking Gretchen, Storm Boys, and just making, oh, you can't move anymore. Okay, you're not going to move this turn either. Enjoy hanging out on this side because I'm going to kill the stuff on this side. You got to kill some stuff. You don't have to kill all the stuff. That's a big deal on that. And the orcs have the ability to do that. We've got so many units that can move block. We got so many units that are just good at scoring. I love Storm Boys. I love my Gretchen. You got to remember, everybody, Grots actually run orc culture because they fix everything. They drive everything.
Well, with you saying that, one thing that I want to bring up is how much of your army do you pressure or expose with? Because you're saying I can move up the table and not worry about killing everything. What you're also in turn saying is you're controlling your rate of attrition because orcs are known to die. You're not really trying to also survive either. As an orc player, you're willing to go down and lose almost everything. So with that in mind, how much do you expose? How much do you pressure with? A lot of people are scared to put certain things on the table because they're going to get shot. They're going to, they're scared of alpha strike. They can't hide everything behind a piece of terrain. And it's like, hey, man, that's not how the game's played. Can you go into that a bit?
You have to. It's a really good question. It's a really tough question because it's going to go on the mission of who you're playing against. So certain armies, you're going to go all in. When I say all in, it's all, I call it passive aggressive because you're going to push up and minimize. You can't stop all of the shots from coming, but you can minimize. You can, if you can manipulate it down so you're not getting shot by all the units, only part of the units, because all of a sudden they won't be able to finish off things. They won't be able to kill that truck. Maybe they kill the truck, but they can't get to the boys inside. Your knobs are now going to make that charge. So you're always looking for, and again, pre-measure. I pre-measure my opponent more often than anything else. That's how you get into how much to pressure and expose. I'm going to look at, we're playing right now. I'm going to take my tape and I'm going to look at how far each of your units can move and then figure out the angles where I can move to, because I'm willing to take a couple shots. You can't stop that. You can't stop getting shot at all, but you can minimize that and make it so that you still have a good amount of your force. Now, what are you playing against? What is their countercharge? What is their, I like to say threat bubbles. How much, what can they reach out? Because I want to make it so I can strike first is what you're always looking to do. So I'm looking at pressuring in a way that minimizes the shots coming against me, but setting myself up for the maximum amount of damage, maximum amount of threats I can put out. Because if you're playing your opponent, I always take questions. I want to ask as many questions as I possibly can to my opponent. You have to figure out where all my stuff's coming from, reserves and things of that nature, where I can actually strike you, because you're going to get one of those questions wrong. And certain armies, cough, cough, Eldar, you just have to put baby in the corner sometimes. I play thousands against Thousand Suns. I just played him in the last tournament I was at in LVO, first game. Thousand Suns. I jammed the army into the corner. I baited Magnus out, made him come over and kill Maz, and then I took the rest of my army and I jammed them into a corner. And at the end of the game, he was put my orcs in the wood chipper, but I was up. I prevented his primary for multiple turns. And that's what I was talking about. Of you don't have to kill things. If you get your army thrown, that you get tabled on turn 5, but you're winning on primary by 30 points. Okay. They don't get a sticker or anything for killing your models.
Nope.
You just write in what that score is. And that means you have to, I say passive aggressive, but what you shouldn't never do, there's 2 things you can't do. One, don't just YOLO swag your army up and have it out there. You'll lose most of the time. Your opponent gets to pick and choose where he's killing you. The other thing, and it's actually non-orky and it's a bad technique, you can't be so afraid of getting shot at that you get stuck in the corner and don't do anything.
Yeah.
One, it's not any fun. Two, you're going to lose. And you're going to lose in a not fun way because you're not scoring your secondaries. You're not scoring your primaries. I would rather lose being a little too aggressive than a little too patient, or a little, not even patient. You have to be, if you want to be the best war boss you can be, you have to have patience, because it's not about wogging on turn one. It's about setting up. It's about threatening that wog, taking those points, setting yourself up. But you have to set that up. It's a stage. You're basically, I'm going from here to here and here to here. I know you can only get this many units to see me, and you have to get that. You can't be afraid of losing units. Every unit's valuable, but you can't be attached to units where you're afraid to lose anything. Because one of the most powerful things in your army, and I do this all the time, is I take part of my army and I push up and I limit people from where they can go. You need those units to move up. You need your storm boys. You need a small unit. You need a unit of bikes and things of that nature. Limit your opponent's movement, and then those other units behind don't get those shots. These units get killed, but you're cool with that. Move blocking is so key.
There's ways you can instigate your enemy into forcing them to shoot that they don't want to do, and just causing too many activations. When you were talking about knowing the enemy's threat bubbles, a lot of the time people will see, ooh, vehicle there with big cannon. They didn't even bother to ask, what were the other secondary weapon profiles on there, and what are their ranges? Can you even shoot me with all the DACA in this vehicle turn one? And you're so worried about that from getting disembarked that you didn't prepare your staging, as he said. And sometimes even then, certain units, in my opinion, will say, for example, into the new post data slate, if you're running a kill rig with the Beast Boss and Beast Snagga Boys, that's a kind of unit that can operate outside of the WAAAGH, even on turn 2, to go skirmish, to go fight some elite infantry, to win an objective based off pure OC, and then turn 3 you come in with the WAAAGH to really clean up and push that flank. You've given up the kill rig and the Beast Boss and the Beast Snagga Boys, but you've run over the other side of the table. That's where exposing, pressuring, not putting in your wall turn 1, 2, and coming in sometimes turn 3 really makes the factor. I've seen games people going against great knights, chaos knights and such like that, where they pull turn 4 or 5 walls because the enemy's so hesitant to just run and meet them that they just end up losing like that.
It's huge, and you can just move, and you move block them too. You push them back, you make them worried about stuff, and you just feed them your nonsense.
So then, if you're feeding nonsense, how much do you typically put in reserve?
This is big on this, because sometimes you put the wrong things in reserve, and then you're sad.
Or in the wrong matchups, right? Yeah.
Well, this is a big thing, because I always think you have to have something in reserve, because if you don't have something in reserve, your opponent doesn't have to respect his backfield. So when you get into Hammer and Anvil, you get into Dawn of Wars and stuff, your opponent doesn't want to spend resources boxing out areas where there's no objectives. If you have reserves coming in, they have to start worrying about that. They have to worry about their backfield objective.
Especially now with the indirect taking some nerfs, right? You're not going to have these random bricks in the back just chilling out no more.
I'm so I hate flyers the most, but I hate indirect second.
Yeah, for sure. Sure.
Well, I just don't like anything that doesn't allow me to play against it. You know what I mean? Yep. I can't really hide. So it's always kind of bothered me. But you have to have something that makes people respect what you're going to do. Because your opponent can just make these great easy bubbles if they don't have to respect the backfield bubbles. Make them answer things. You don't even have to have that much stuff in reserve. You just have to have some things in reserve. Plus, like, I auto put a couple Storm Boys in reserve every game. Besides anything else, I'll put in reserve.
At least one unit I like a lot too. Well, with reserves talking about, right, we have to understand how strong rapid ingress is for our opponent, but then also for us as well, and how having board control really impacts the enemy's rapid ingress. Being able to auto advance with the Death Killer War Trike, a War Boss on bike. Maybe some wild gets out there thinking, hey, a shock jump dragster for 75 points. I can teleport.
I love that thing, baby.
Spots in the field. Some people will go with a weird boy solo, or they'll flex and actually have a 10-man boys and trucks. And some games they'll put them with the weird boy because the enemy can't screen their backfield. They know they can go get it, or they go, hey, I just take weird boy solo. So even just with reserve, I think there's a good time. You could even mention, movement all over the field, kind of with teleportations. I mean, Snickrot, we've seen he can do it, but he needs to come down in points. But do you think that's actually important for orcs? Because one thing I didn't put on here, but I also want to talk about, is scouting, infiltrating. With the data slate, our stuff already went up in points. Can we even afford that, or is that a luxury?
It's a luxury right now. I really, one of the things that I'm most excited for coming up. I really want us to have 5-man units that infiltrate again. Come on, man, give me my. They can't be that expensive. You know what I mean? Because your forward deploying units are one of the most powerful units in the game, because you can box out your field, you can take an initial force, you can set up your reserves, you can box out your opponent's reserve. They're so valuable. But the thing is they can't be. I don't want big units. I don't want a 10-man unit.
Or a 20-man unit of 22 of Grotz and Wurznaga.
Exactly. I want small units that surgically give me pieces of the board and restrict my opponent. We really need that, because like some of the matches become like World Leaders, for instance. If we had just cheap forward deployers, I think that match becomes easy, to be honest with you.
In a lot of ways it can be easy. It's that certain particular tools with really good players that can really put us on our back foot and mess us up. But in the other ways, it is easy. It's that one piece, like you're saying, we're missing.
Oh, I think because I feel like we have a good match into that, but I think it'd be a great match if I didn't have to go. Well, I can't do anything about their scouts and their initial moves. I want to get in the way. I want to fight on my terms.
It's weird because I had to deal with some silly Nurgle's demon list that had just a silly amount of Nurglings, and they went first, and they just pretty much got in front of all my squigs, all my chucks, took up all the lands, stood 1 inch away from me. The player barely even had to do anything, and I was already on the back foot just starting from that. I didn't expect that. I'd parking lot myself a little bit. He had got me all over the table. That's something that Orc players don't think about until it's pretty much too late, and you didn't consider the silly amount of units can actually hold me in my backfield. That's why I'm like, oh man, I can think of trucks, I can still bring squigs, I can still bring all these different things. At the same time, I'm still worried about people dropping stuff into lanes, little ripper swarms, little canoptic swarms. There's still the spore mine still going to be a thing.
Spore mine's such a bummer. I hate that guy.
So and I think that's what Tyranids, because Tyranids have a good win rate into beating Orcs right now, even though they suck in the meta. A lot of times at mid tables and reaching top 10, they beat you.
Gargoyles, spore mines, the gargoyles get going. The gargoyles can go up to 24 inches on turn 1. Man.
Oh yeah, I was and that's why I'm like, dude, against them, like when I was gonna play Gary, I'm like, I'm just gonna put my flash gets on the table, bro, because as soon as you're moving, I'm gonna have to shoot you, because I can't let you step in front of me turn 1.
Yeah, I have to be able to move. They can lock you down. You play Endless Swarm and they have 40 gargoyles. All of a sudden you're like, I didn't get to move for the first 2 turns, and then it doesn't even matter what you do for the rest of the game.
And NIDs are going to become interesting just because of that alone, in my opinion, which how they've gotten so many points decreases, so they can double down on I can move block you, and I can have thick things like Norns in the way, so you can't come meet them where you want to.
I think that's I actually think that NIDs are one of the armies that's underperforming because they didn't really find their identity, and I think they're terrifying. I think that that's a tough army, especially when you're talking Orcs. That is an army that is very difficult to beat because they have a lot of keys to beating Orcs, which is volume, bodies, move blocking. You're like everything that you run down the list.
3.
Yeah, you run down the list of things that Orcs don't want to deal with. They have all of them, so that's a big deal on that. And one of the big things of that reserve question also is, don't go into the game and say, I'm just going to kill shit, because you're not going to win. Even if you have a bad plan, have a plan. How am I going to score? Just have like a basic, if no one was in front of you. I do this all the time. I tell people, do it. Deploy your army by yourself, be it on TTS, be it in your game room at home, be it out the store, and just look and go, pull your 2, play tactical, pull 2 objectives and go, who would score this right from this
for sure. Now? I've done that where I put my army on the table where I'm practice gaming with some people I know, and I'm like, man, this list is awesome. I put on the table, I'm like, oh, this list sucks, bro. I don't even know how I would play this. I didn't think further than turn 1. I actually don't think I could play the whole game like this, and I end up being right. And you can tell sometimes just from deploying when you played enough games, you theory crafted everything other than your actual board presence.
Oh, it's so big. I tell you, you have to you have to know how big your butt is. It goes with the reserves.
And that's why I'm saying, I don't know, scout and infiltrating, man, it becomes like, I want it, but it becomes just, is it a thing where I'm just paying to be cute?
We'll talk about the future codex in a minute here.
There's so much. Yeah, let's go into what missions do you favor, though, and dread as an Orc player? Not just deployments, because you can mention your favorite deployment, like you said, but, we all know corners, but what missions do you actually favor and hate as an Orc player?
The mission that I hate as an but we're not even going to talk about like servo skulls. That's not a real mission. So, but
Yeah, no.
but I actually hate supply drop because you have the random things of burning.
Yeah.
And the thing is that Orcs after the WAAAGH turn and later in the game, a lot of times after the transports possibly get blown up, you don't have a WAAAGH to go anymore. They've killed some of your fast units. You have to really think ahead of where you're going. And that mission's really hard because a lot of times, and everybody makes this mistake, I've made it myself, you end up fighting too hard on objectives that are going to burn too early. And then you find yourself going, oh crap, I got to go to the other side of the board. That's a really tough mission, and it doesn't favor Orcs. My favorite mission as far as Orcs go, because I bring a decent amount of characters, I love playing Sites of Power.
Yeah,
I just love it. Because you basically, especially if you're playing Sites of Power, Hammer and Anvil, which is two of them off the thing, I'm telling you guys right now, if you play Sites of Power, Hammer and Anvil, if you find yourself behind the midline, what are you doing there, man? There's no reason.
True, run them down. It's funny you say that because I dealt with Eldar the same way. I put up 100 points recently. I was like, sorry, guy.
You just sit here and go, well, come on over. Do something about this. I'm scoring 15 a turn. You're scoring 3. So, I'll be right here when you want to play.
And you like playing on GW terrain? How do you ever practice on WTC terrain? What do you usually play on?
Well, I played WTC terrain a lot because I was at WTC. I went 11 years for Team America. So I played a lot on the WTC terrain. I really enjoyed GW terrain, but here's the caveat on GW terrain. I want to play on the actual GW terrain because most of them, like a lot of mounted and vehicle keyword in Orcs, and on actual GW terrain, when you have the 2-inch, the 2 or less pieces, you can, you can basically be right in the corners and just walk right over that.
Yes,
and they're fantastic. But if they make them full walls, because a lot of people use the old, then it becomes like because you got to all the way around all the time. I don't like player place terrain. I just think it adds time, and it's not new player friendly either, man. Like,
not.
Well, you put that down. It's my least favorite. I don't hate it, but like, it's one of those things where if you're not playing player place terrain all the time and you go to an event with player place terrain and then you mess up player place terrain, you already lost. Yeah, I mean, it's bad. I do like WTC terrain, but the WTC boards are very wildly because they're made for team tournaments and people choosing what board they want to go on. So you've got some pretty heavy boards and some pretty open boards. I do like that style of terrain though, because I think it gives a nice variety. I like to have more than just a wall. I want walls and crates, and I wish Forrest actually did something,
Yeah, that's very true. I did like that when I played on it a bit too. And that's a good point you bring up because I am privileged enough to have lucky that GW terrain and I play like that and I do move through that. And then I went to an RTT and there are some of these silly kind of, no offense to them, but pieces of terrain where I was completely blocked off and Tau players could just sit on there and shoot, and ended up having a harder game than I should have against Tau just because it was like, you can't interact with me here.
Right.
There you go.
Like, sometimes it gets really weird on that.
Yeah. You got to be aware of that too, is whatever you're practicing on home, might not be exactly the same. Be prepared to get through terrain. I think the infantry keyword is very, very important after we talked about how much we can get move blocked, right?
100%.
And so then with what can come up with Orcs in the future, what do you want to see in the codex? What do you see with,
All right. I'm super excited, so I'm going to go crazy about this. I want to play some snake bites because I want to play the rugged Orcs on that. We need our 4 deployers back. You know what I mean? We need the commandos.
Not big bricks either. Right?
No,
making a huge screen. Oh,
it's a waste of points because they're always going to get killed on that. You want those units that can be thrown away. I would love if Buggy scouted for one.
Oh, that's not. Oh, I love that idea because just shout out to the big boss. He was just saying that he wanted to use a snaz wagon as a early game skirmisher to run up and just throw commit early. They do have a little bit of OC to beat transports and such. So that's interesting. Okay, I like that.
We need a little bit more just pre-game, like a couple units of 4 deploy, and what I really want besides that, like that's mechanical things. What I want from the art codex is I want the clans to feel like different clans. I want snake bites to feel like snake bites. I want the speed walk. I want to have the
I want blood axes for
blood
something
axes.
cunning,
Yes,
man. I want
yes.
some shenanigans for
They,
movement.
they should have
You
a lot
know?
of like crazy stuff.
Ooh,
I want them to feel like not just this gives me a plus to this. I want to feel like I'm playing that each army should feel, each clan should feel different. It
very
doesn't have,
different.
right. I mean, like Speed Freaks, if I'm playing a Speed Freaks detachment, it should not look like my Snake Bites detachment.
So, are you okay with data sheets almost being limited to certain detachments, right? Because should a speed walk be almost built for the buggies, right? Does it seem like that has to be that way? That's how Necrons looked, and
See, I'm a big fan of having pros and cons when you make a detachment. Like I should get benefits from doing, but it should be flavorful because it also should be fun. You know why I want that? Because I'd like to have I'd like to stay in my orc codex because I'm planning on playing orcs for a while with the codex, and I'd love to. I want to have the big thing is I'd like to have it feel like wildly different. Like if I'm playing Speed Freaks, I want it to have a different feel to it than when I'm playing my Snake Bites. And if they make the detachments have their own flavor, but they have restrictions, where I can't take certain things. Maybe this gets a bonus. Maybe the Speed Freaks go faster. What? And maybe I'm more durable. You know, maybe I have the can't be wounded on twos kind of thing, and we used to have. And look at in things of that nature. Give each one its own strengths, but give it its weaknesses on that. Maybe I can't take a bunch of vehicles in Snake Bites. Maybe I can't take a bunch of infantry in Speed Freaks.
I think Tyrannids did really good with their book, but one thing I can just come off the top of my head that I really appreciated was how in the new Dark Eldar, when they're broken down their new detachment, they have stratagem for the when they kill you, they get to jump back into
the vehicle.
But I believe it's witches. Can't they move in any direction? There's some sect of the wording.
Yeah, they had the different on that. Plus, they can lock people in combat.
Yeah, but my pointing in that is just to the fact that you can make things significantly better by just adding one unit's keyword or something to the strat. And then you go, look, this is still a great strat, right? Jumping back into transport's always going to be great. But now you said, hey, in this one detachment, this one unit is just slightly better because now it gets this one strat capability. It makes it so you can throw it into other detachments and find use in its overall data sheet. But then the strat utility that comes from just that detachment throws it over the top in that detachment. That's a good way if you want to keep it from limited in one detachment. I think
I'd love to
start using those keywords in the strats or in other ways that they already do, like when they compound leaders with units. That's a good way to like limit it without getting outrageous, right? Because you don't want to be outrageous yet. Well, unless we're talking about the shock attack gun, right?
I'll say I need some shock attack on much on me.
I think I want something cunning, but I really want to run like a mech wall again, and I'm so discouraged and annoyed by how proficient some of these anti-tank one-shot weapons or low volume shot. We got the Gladius Grav Tank, we got the Eldar Dark Lances. I mean, Exocrines are disgusting at killing anything that's light
so
armor
much damage
or
and stuff like
E8 or whatever.
We have no damage reduction on that.
We have no damage reduction.
Why are killer cans? They got a reduction, but it's not enough.
We got one armor of contempt. We got silly 6-up, feel no pains, no invulns, no great armor saves. Our Morkanauts and our Gorkanauts have 3-up armor saves. Our Death Dread has like 8 wounds, and it's 130. It's like all the dreads and mechs that like really become silly and embody orcs, because those are our gods personified, silly on the battlefield, right? They play horribly almost to an extent. Their rules don't make sense, and nothing about them is flavorful and interesting. The Gorkanaut gets +1 to hit on the wall. The Morkanaut gets +1 to hit on the wall, and all its guns are trash strength.
It's trash strength. It doesn't have a 2-up. It doesn't have a great way to get there.
Transport 12 is cute.
Yeah,
SWAT teams, shout out to SWAT teams.
It's nice on that, but the thing is that I feel both those units need a rework. To be honest with you, I don't even think that you can just buff them. I really feel that you need to just go in the codex. I think that a couple of units need to be reworked, and just that this is how give them any new rules. To be honest with you, I'd just like to see them. The thing is I would rather see GW rework and fail than do nothing to a unit that hasn't get played. It hasn't been exciting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the thing is I want that again, want good clan, difference in the clans. I would really like to see Mega Knobs be damn Mega Knobs again. Come on, man.
2 attacks. What's up? That's so insulting, dude. God, I love their strength, love their AP, love their reroll wounds. What are you doing? And why do they compound every rule around our data sheets around the wall? Do they just want us to have a 1-turn game? Like they could have a couple rules that are not around the
Oh,
wall.
I know. It's
Right?
crazy that there's so many things that only go the WAAAGH. Also, you know what? I'm throwing this out there. We talked about it before. I hate with a passion. I don't want to be the salty guy, but like, give me back my walk on my turn. Let me have more control of it.
No, a lot of people feel that way. We need at least control of it. It's going to be, if you're going to limit it, make it a 1-turn thing, not even give us a second part of it like you did in last edition. Let us control when it goes off.
Yeah, it's so crazy to me because like we play a game and I'm playing an aggressive army and I go first. And then I'm like, are you calling the WAAAGH? And if you call the WAAAGH, I go, cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand over here.
Mhm.
Enjoy your turn because I'll be hanging out, a million miles away, and then we'll play the game after the WAAGH is done. And that's crazy, man. That you play this game of chicken with your opponent, and then if you set up super defensively, they know that you're not going to call the WAAGH on turn 1, turn 2. You know what I mean? Because you're so defensive, so they can then push forward because they know that you aren't going to do that. So give us just more options to be a great general. You know what I mean? Give me more tools in my hand.
And like I said, I think the Nod with Wall banner becomes a weird tech piece for that. If we're stuck like this, being able to call Wall on him and throw him out as bait, especially if you put Cunning but Brutal on him like Sean Naden did, almost every enemy army looks at that like, all right, I got to get that before it runs to my home field objective this turn. It becomes a weird way if you're going second to throw that away. It's just a good point. It's just a big points investment. The battle wagon going down was really nice. I'm not sure if it's the answer because, like I said, there's so much good anti-tank weapons and these other different armies that are already a hard matchup for us. Besides,
the
Nids
wagon
can't
is
really
so
pop
big, too.
wagons.
And
Nids can't really pop wagons,
yeah.
right?
Nigs, Grey Knights, there's a couple armies that can't, but like it's a really big vehicle that should be slightly tougher, to be honest with you, because like in editions past, the battle wagon was boss mode as far as durability went.
I think for 160 points at T12 with the built-in armor of contempt, you are cooking with something right there. You are cooking with something.
I was looking at it and I was debating on it. I haven't decided yet because like I like to. I'm a big as many cheap units as I can possibly put on the board to play. But like when it went down in points, I was like, oh, is this? Also, it holds 1 billion guys, so that's just
Dude, 22 homies, man. When I disembark with those guys, it feels so good. But like you said, I like cheap stuff too. You know, I think the fact that I'm already running Maz and Gaz makes it so my wagon kind of ends up falling off because I'm already suspecting a lot of anti-tank weapons to be around and a lot of other enemy small transports. So I'm like, if anything, I might need some more trucks, some more skirmishing capability. I'm really riding that 4-up feeling low pain sometimes on Maz or Death Killer Wartrike because if I can't infiltrate, if I can't scout, I do need that auto 6-inch advance and I do need to get out the table quickly and be able to do assault. In case
the Wartrike is something that's been in and out of, and I haven't put it in my tournament lists. I played it a lot in practice games and stuff. I like that a lot.
The what?
The Wartrike.
Okay, you said that. Okay.
But the Wartrike, to be honest with you, I really want Speed Freaks to be a thing, and then I'll definitely have him leading the army on that. So I want that to be a big thing. It's just I wanted to make a more buggy centric. I actually wish they brought the points down. I really think that the buggies all needed to be even less, to be honest with you. I want to see that in the new codex. I'd like to see buggies be
Shock Jump Jacks at 75 points. That's probably the one you think it's fair.
Yeah, the thing is you have to have enough stuff. You know what I mean? And you make up a good point about that. There's so many anti-tank weapons that if you have single model units, and all of a sudden you get hit by, a gladiator lancer or something, they can just one shot you.
Gladiator Lancers can literally one shot the battle wagon, the horrifically mutilated Gorkanaut.
It's just so it's hard for me to put a lot of those things out there because you know what you're going to see. I mean, because when you're getting ready for tournaments, what I want to see in the codex, because I want to get ready for tournaments, I have to be able to put an army on the board that's going to be able to handle. I look at what are the top 5 armies. Can I play against those armies? And I need to have that. The Orc Codex, the things that I want to see in that codex need to have answers that other people are getting. Right now, we don't have great forward deploy, scout. We also don't have good reactive moves. Almost every codex has some sort of reactive moves or ability to just take shit off the table and put it back on. Especially now with the GW Dataslate coming out from the rules commentary, where if you bring something off the board on turn 1, top of, you can put it back down on your turn 1. That's a huge deal.
Huge, powerful rules, man. Huge,
It's
strong rules.
gigantic on that. So like we need more. We just need more, to be honest with you. I just think we need more. And I'm hoping that, because I think that the codexes have been really good so far as far as giving players options to do things and basically making you feel like you've got a great ability to lead your army and make your skill matter on the board. So,
and I don't want to be negative about the data slate either, but because I'm not negative as a whole, because I think orcs do great, as we spoke about, but they didn't decrease our points in any of these out of pocket units or not top of the meta units within our index, knowing we don't have good internal balance. They almost kept our list looking the same. I can very much run a very samey kind of list right now. If I drop like 3 squigs and I just make it a brick, and I can still bring Maz and Gaz, but did I really want to see that? Did I really just want to know I can preserve the same exact kind of list of kind of archetypes I'm running?
Like my list went 95 points up, and that wouldn't really change anything. I'm just trying to make new things work. But like, here's the thing on this: Orcs Sisters, Votan. There's a couple armies that like shouldn't have just got touched. You know what I mean? If you're in that sweet spot, and I thought the Orcs were in that sweet spot, we were winning in the we did what they asked. We won in the night. We weren't too low, we weren't too high, and I felt that like we weren't overpowering anybody with our data slates. I felt that we got touched. I don't want to bitch. I hate
it's the casual level and intermediate level where 12 Squig Hog boys just ran your friends over, and there's nothing you can do about it if you didn't know how to deal with it, and that's taken into consideration as well. That's why I was saying you couldn't drop points somewhere else on the table. Like, there's a bunch of little combos I'm interested in taking. They just need to come down some points. So and when you did look at what did come down, let's say the Killicans, we spoke about, yes, I can appreciate ablative wounds when I'm talking about anti-vehicle weapons, right? I can appreciate that the Killicans are spread for their points values, and las cannons can't so proficiently kill them. Yet something that is going to be like an exocrine, that you can have 3 of them on the table, and they're going to eat those guys up and be so happy. You're going to give free bring them down points. They're still falling into the same weaknesses of movement shenanigans, -1 to hit auras, -1 to hit abilities.
You're already
that they're going to have to deal with. They're going to suck from stealth. Everything they're doing is on 4s, and Tyranids are going to look at them and say, "What? Leadership 8? Go ahead and take a battle shock. You suck. I don't even have to go kill you now. I'm not really that worried about you." The Maliceptors can make a -1 hit, I believe. They still have that. It's just like within a certain range. It's like so many of our harder matchups, you're not getting anything out of adding a bunch of Killicans unless you're trying to stat check someone by saying, "I'm going to throw 700 points of it at you."
Man, there's some tough matchups out there for us that, especially with the resurgence of Death Guard. I mean, being -2 to hit them, man, that's crazy.
One thing we cover is we have a 40% win rate into Death Guard right now, according to Leviathan GT Pack. Since the data slate, they're our hardest matchup on paper, hands down, because they're going to stack Nurglings to your -1 ballistic and weapon skill. Now you've increased the Death Shrouds, made them better with their flamers and just murking everybody. It's like
the flamers are looking good. They also they're banking us -2 to hit, and they've got a bunch of fights first. You know what I mean?
But I want to say Dark Eldar. I know I don't. I have a good Dark Eldar player near me. A lot of people don't play against them, but they have good AP now of -2. They're getting land. They're gonna shred Mega Knobs now. If you were trying to think that they're gonna shred your
half the army.
Yeah, they're gonna just shred your Mega Knobs and your normal knobs. They're going to be able to pop transport their Talos, like we were talking about, things that can pop transports too easily, or vehicles too easily. Talos get, I think, anti-vehicle weapons as well, or Dev. Is it them?
Think about all the small things. I was just working on the Dark Eldar list, and I had 1 million vehicles. I had 4 Raiders, 3 Venoms,
reactive
3
moving ones.
Yeah, and then you're getting out. You're getting, now that you can disembark from transports out of reserve. They're getting full rerolls with double exploding 6s on their warrior units when they shoot, and all of a sudden you go, cool, I shot my Dark Lance, cool, now I get 3 hits.
Buy your Squig Hog boys.
Blasters, they've got all this stuff, and all this stuff, and all the regular guns are anti-infantry 3. We just need more tools, to be honest. I'm very excited for the Codex. I actually thought we'd have the Codex by now, to be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Well, they said it. They said it's still a winter Codex. So, like, I thought that because we were getting Dark Angels and Orcs, I thought we were going to get a January release or early February, and it looks like we're going to be back hopefully February.
I'm thinking they're going to take longer than that. You know, I have little faith because I've been in since 8th edition too, and I felt like I had my hopes up so high because they were doing so well then. And they've slowly just been like, well, you know, that was a lot of work. That was a pretty high bar. That was a pretty high standard. Can you guys relax a little? And so they've just been going backwards now. So now I just go like, whatever, man. I don't think so. I think they're going to take a while. They hit Custodes and Orcs, letting us know they really just left some other armies alone. And I don't know. I think our harder matchups didn't really get hit like we needed them to because, yes, CSM were hard for the meta, but as for
that
us,
army's literally fine anyways.
You know, CSM getting hit, they got hit. That's okay, but we had other things that are just doing good that are good against us, like Custodes, that we need to find direct answers for while also finding answers for Eldar and all their transports, right? You want to bring bricks of hitting stuff like gas and lethal for Custodes, yet you want to bring, you know, flash gets for being able to pop multiple transports in one shooting activation and an Overwatch compared to like what they're going to do against Custodes, where the Custodes might just take 2-up saves the whole game. It's like, where are my tools going? What am I doing?
New Eldar is going to be harder to play because right now you've got, you know, the standard Eldar list, which was 3 Night Spinners, Wraithguard, and Incarn. I can deal with that. You know what I mean? I can put pressure them. I can put them in the corner. I think that now that they're not going to be playing Wraithguard because they went up and their rolls got smashed, and they're not going to be playing as many spinners. Well, that you look at the index, man, they have crazy amounts of good shit in that index. I actually think that they're going to be nastier into us coming forward because they'll have more stuff.
Yeah,
because they won't be as one dimensional, and all of a sudden they'll have all those extra lances and everything and more units to play the game. I actually think they're going to be tougher. Same, you can't just put them in the corner. You're going to have to play the game a little bit more. So
yeah, they didn't have combined arms. Like when I would play Eldar, they didn't have anything really good for countercharging other than their big dudes. And you're like, well, you're worth fighting on death for. So thanks. Right. Compared to like a small kind of skirmish unit, you don't want to do the 2 CP for like other armies can do. They didn't have combined force of arms like Space Marines kind of had, like Templars can kind of still have. So Orcs do lack the reactive moves because when we're looking at these different armies that now have codexes or interesting detachment rules, a bunch of transports, we're like, how can we even interact with these things? I just want to shoot everything with the flash kits, or I just want to crump everything with lethals and sustained. All my answers are to hit you really hard or to try to shoot you from really hard from far away. It's not giving us a lot of options when the game's getting more complex and they're trying to get away from just stat checking each other. Yet the only tools they're really giving us are to break stat checks.
We need more. I'm excited I'm still excited. I've got a very high second level for the Codex in the fact that I hope. How about that? I hope. Let's do hope. I hope that they address a lot of that. And I have to say that for the most part, they have so far. You know what I mean? I've been happy with the codices that they've released and even the stuff that they put out. The fact that Votann and Death Guard were the 2 shittiest armies in the game.
Yeah.
And then they gave it the Dataslate. They moved all the way up. And they just gave Dark Eldar a huge buff in points and that new detachment, plus a bonus to the Power for Pain. So I'm hoping that when we get our Codex, we don't just get good stat lines. We get good mechanical rules.
Yeah.
Things that you can play. Things that you can make a difference on the table. I don't need like my stats to be better than your stats and us just to bang into each other. I want to be able to have the tools to try to outplay you on the board. You know what I mean?
I think that's where Death Guard became very interesting. These are the most interesting rules they've had with their cool little characters and finding different ways to fight you and blah, blah, blah. And their auras being different than I'm just thick. They did a good job with that one. And then the Tyranids Vanguard, they did a really good job with, in my opinion, where it's fun. They interact with you. It's super cool rules. I'm not sure about AdMech. I hear things, but you know, sometimes people are just too sensitive because it's a very expensive army. And
that's the problem with AdMech is it's tough to experiment because it's the most expensive army in the game.
Yeah,
Like,
my co-host David, my cousin, he runs an Adamec army. He took it to LVO when we went, and yeah, it was super expensive and hobby time for him to commit to. And I
it's
think
just
once they
crazy.
commit, they're like super mad and they don't want to recommit to models and stuff. So it's hard for me to say that's a niche faction in army. I own a full Tempesta Scion army, so it's kind of like niche and weird too. So it's kind of funny like that as well. Um, so with that being said, we all know the Codex is going to be sick. We hope it comes out sooner than later. Orcs are still going to be still pretty powerful. I just think we're going to have some direct predators that we got to pay attention to and just know what rules we're taking for that and how those new armies work, or detachment rules, sorry, for Dark Eldar. But with that, tell us about some of your upcoming events, some things on your channels, even your lore channel. Tell us about that a bit so that we can know what to look forward to.
I'm willing to talk about all these things. We're going to North Carolina this weekend. I'm going to play in the ATC North Carolina 40K event hosted by WAAAGH Games. So yeah, I've got it up right now. Playing in that, I'm going down to Arkansas. I'm playing in the melee at Shiloh, hanging out with Blake Law and the boys. Definitely, I'm on every week. I'll do content Monday through Thursday. Basically, I do Monday at 7, Thursday at 7, and then we do Tuesday and Wednesday, 2:00. That's not every Tuesday and Wednesday. That's more when things have come out. I usually address them. And then every week, release my Lorecast, 40K Lorecast. Go to the site, go to the Facebook page, go to the website, but you can download from anywhere you can download on that. And I'm a lore guy first, and that's my passion project that I just started. And I love that.
Yeah, when I first started 40K, I was super like, what's happening with these orcs and lore? I was always looking for more. So if you can find more, that's another way to get into it, because there's a lot of lore channels, but sometimes it's the right voice, the right passion behind the one faction you're talking about. Like my boy Major Kill, he's cool. I'm gonna choke him out one day, but he loves Eldar, and I'm like, dude, what's going on with that? Like, you're cool, you do jiu-jitsu and stuff, but Eldar, your favorite faction. What's up with you, dork? But so sometimes you listen to people's by their faction, but then you're like, you're a great person, but I gotta hear my own faction. So knowing that you love orcs and similar factions,
and we're going to go back. Both John and I are big orc guys.
Yeah, there you go. Then that's
so
where
we're back, and we've got plans to do multiple orc because we want to hit multiple things. One of the things, we started talking about the War of the Beast. We did an episode on that. And that's a fantastic book. If you guys are looking to jump into lore, that's a great book for orcs to get into. War of the Beast is fantastic.
Yeah, I got through the first 3 books. I think I still own them, like the actual hard copies too.
It's just, I mean, that's fantastic for like orcs doing orc things that make sense. Because one of the things I hate about when they give you orc lore is it's always from, some Marine beating up on 2,000 orcs, and you're like, man, get out of here.
Oh my god, no, for sure. Gosh, what is that? There's a couple books where you're like, I really want to appreciate this, like maybe Assault on Hell's Reach, or Hell's Reach book. You're like, I really want to appreciate this, but Black Templar has a little too much going on here and beating up my orcs. I'm really just appreciating when they're dying near the end.
Yeah, it's just like you're like, really, every Marine killed 1,000,000 orcs.
Yeah, right. I was like,
right,
what?
okay,
sure. You guys would have
sure.
won. Okay, quit playing. There would have been a mountain too high. You guys wouldn't be able to walk anywhere.
Yeah.
It's also like, you can compare the old lore books to the new, how they're newly written with the orc perspective, like Brutal Cunning or a Catachan Devil, if you haven't heard that book, like where they give you a direct orc perspective, their narrative point of view, how they're looking at their own fellow greenskins, how they're looking at the humans they're perceiving. And that's so much better because orcs, unlike Tyranids, have their own personalities, have kind of hero characters you can root for and cheer for. And like that new character that's coming out, who's sadly going directly to Legends, that's another thing where Orcs is getting love.
Yeah.
They're getting love, Legends, whatever it may be, but that's the thing where that makes Orc different.
I love it. And the thing is that I love that orcs are the orcs are the most. If no one knows this, the orcs are the most powerful psykers in the galaxy. They literally will things into existence, things that they believe in. It's how a WAAAGH happens. More orcs, like literally getting on the same page, becomes a reality. You actually become more powerful. Things work. One of my favorite, I'll throw this out here real quick. It's just one of my favorite orc stories. Is they have an orc that they captured, and an inquisitor's talking about what's happening, and they had a slugga, and they literally don't understand how it would do anything. It's just a piece of metal, effectively, that's shaped like a gun, and they couldn't make it fire. And then they let an orc in, and he immediately grabs it and starts shooting everybody.
Yeah.
Believes that it can shoot because obviously it can.
It's orcs are just outrageous because their psychic energy does have at least some influence over technology and intellect directly, right? Because
100%.
we all know that the Big Mac come from a certain level of wall energy being increased. So you do need a certain amount of psychic energy for your wall to be big enough for you to even construct something like a Stampa, something have a Big Mac like that. So it actually goes congruently together. At first, you think of it as like silly as crap when you hear that. You're like, man, this sounds dumb. I don't want to like this faction. Like when I started and I was reading the codex, I was like, what's the choppa? What the heck is that? And the guy's like, that's what you melee with. I'm like, a choppa? A slugga? And someone else like, I have a last cannon or a reaper chain gun. And I'm like, what is happening here? Why am I throwing sticks at people when I seen the stick bomb? And that's what you gotta understand with orcs is as your Greentide, as your wall grows and as we become more powerful, that's where the technology comes into play. That's where our mass and our size comes into play and our durability too, lore wise. So it actually does make sense. And people, you can simplify it because the old lore sometimes did that, but in newer lore, they try to keep it somewhat make sense so that people know that, hey, it's fun and tongue in cheek, but at the same time, it's actually quite a striking force, and
100%. They're terrifying.
Yeah, it's like a force of nature, like I heard it perceived before, which is what's fun about it.
I love it.
You have it. So, with that being said, Brad, I greatly appreciate you. Hopefully we can do this again one day. Let everybody know about how awesome your Great WAAAGH is. We're going to be following on our Meta Wednesdays. We always do every week where we follow the top list. We look at how the orcs are overall doing in the data slate. In their data and their percentage win rates and stuff like that. So I'm sure we'll see Brad and how he's doing on that. Give his list a shout out. I'll give you guys some good ideas on how to make the rise of the Greentide. So, all right, Brad. And I'll see you guys later because there's one thing to always keep in mind is don't cross our wall because we knock your teeth out. Whoa!